It's Mazda Sports Look, where you see the brightest stars, the leading personalities, the headliners and cover stories of the sports world. On Sports Look, the issues get analyzed and the questions get answered. The host of Sports Look is Roy Firestone, award-winning journalist and interviewer, supported by an expert cast of sports authorities. Sports Look is brought to you by Mazda, who invites you to drive the 323 SE sedan. The solid feel of a road car, the solid value of a Mazda. Now, here's your Sports Look host, Roy Firestone.
Hi, everybody. With the French Open underway in Paris this week, it's now been 8 years since a certain famous Swede won the men's singles title in the Roland Garros clay on an unprecedented 6th time. Of course, it was at Wimbledon where Bjorn Borg forged a reputation that will live forever in the annals of tennis. For 5 straight summers between 1976 and 1980, he faced them all on the fabled grass, including Jimbo and Johnny Mack, and each time the final scene, well, it looked just like this. Bjorn Borg on his knees, his prayers all answered, but standing tall, really, as perhaps the greatest and most popular Wimbledon champ of all time. Today, the Iceman cometh to Sports Look. Bjorn Borg will reflect on his brilliant career, his rivalries, first with Jimmy Connors, then later with John McEnroe, and why ultimately it ended for him rather abruptly at the ripe old age of 26. Today, the star who retired and took a chunk of men's tennis with him, our pleasure to have Bjorn Borg joining us on Sports Look. Later, Borg in Pictures by Robert Rieger. Like Garbo before him, all Bjorn Borg wanted was to be left alone. But when he was on the court, all the eyes were drawn to him magnetically. Robert tells us why, but first here is Bjorn Borg, who is in town to help promote a scholarship program. At the end of today, 2 inner-city youths in Los Angeles will have a scholarship because of tennis and L'Hermitage Foundation and Scandinavian Airlines.
Right, and like you said, we will decide by the end of the day to send 2 kids to one of my tennis clinics in Sweden. And I think it's a great thing what the Hermitage Foundation does, you know, to have this foundation to help unprivileged kids. And you know, they are not only in sports, they're even in arts too. And to have this kind of program will even help, and maybe one day we maybe see some good tennis players coming out from their program.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking forward for the day, and I will choose 2 players coming to go to Sweden, but the rest of the 6 players will go to Vitas Gerulaitis tennis camp in Florida.
It's Delray, Florida.
Delray, Florida.
Good program. Let's talk about the French, and let's talk about John McEnroe. I saw the headline today in the New York Times, actually it was earlier this week. It said, McEnroe is thought of as Jerry Lewis in Paris. Now, I thought about that. What could they mean by that? I guess they think he's a genius also in France. John winning earlier today, playing a match earlier this morning. Why, though, at age 29, when he is particularly vulnerable, is he still playing? When you got it in your mind that you were vulnerable, you got out immediately. What do you think drives him?
That's a good question. I think, you know, myself and John, we are very good friends. We've been friends for a long time, and like you said, I retired when I was 26 years old. And during that time, McEnroe was on his peak. He played a couple of more years, and I think he came into this situation that, you know, he had a family, he has 2 kids right now, and he was interested in a lot of other things except tennis. And then he took some time off from tennis, and you know, I think he needed that for himself, because I think he was a little bit confused with the whole situation. And then he came back after 6 or 8 months, and he started out really well. He won like 2 or 3 tournaments, and then he came back in his own mood again that, you know, maybe he didn't enjoy it anymore. So, you know, he came back and forth, he was resting, and then he came back to tennis again. And I think right now, like you said, now he's trying to make another major comeback in his game. And I don't know, I mean, when I watch him play, I believe that, you know, he's not playing as well as you know, he did maybe for 5, 6 years ago. Is something missing in his game, and I think he realized that himself. But, you know, he wants to prove to the people, or not only to the people, to himself, that, you know, he can come back and be the #1 player again.
Let's take a look back the way it was 8 years ago, maybe the greatest single match ever played in tennis, certainly in Wimbledon championships. 5 hours, 4 hours actually, 4.5 hours, 5 sets, 34-point tiebreaker. You remember the match so well with John. Might it be said, though, that McEnroe privately resented Borg, if for only the reasons of he could never be what you are, that is to say, suave, controlled, respected, loved, and he took some of that out on the court with you?
They're right. John is the way he is. I mean, when he plays, I think he's a very nervous player, and you know, he shows his emotion on the court compared to me. It's very rarely that I show my emotion. I keep them inside. And I mean, people still loves him. I mean, at the same time, they hate him too. But I mean, he's very important for the tennis game, John. And you know, even as much as they hate him, the people like to come and see John McEnroe play tennis, because it's. I mean, if you talk about his game, he's like, if you say like a violin player. I mean, he could do anything with the tennis ball. He has touch, he has finesse, and he's playing that kind of game that people like to see. And outside the court, he's a completely different person. Like I said, we're good friends, and he's a nice guy. I mean, maybe people might look at me and say, how could you say he's a nice guy?
I agree with you. I mean, I know him fairly well, and I would agree with that. I think the perception is, though, based on the court. Let me ask it to you this way, and people don't realize it. When you were a kid, when you were 12 years old, you were a violent kid on the court, too. You were thrown out of tennis in Sweden very briefly because of your behavior on court, right? Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. When I was, I believe it was like 11, 12 years old, I played kind of club matches in my club, who is 10 miles outside Stockholm. And during that time, I was behaving so bad. I was cheating, I was throwing rackets, I was swearing.
Somehow I don't have that image of Bjorn Borg.
It's tough to believe, but that's true.
Yeah.
And one day after the match, one of the head guys of the club just came to the court and said, "I'm sorry, but we have to suspend you for 6 months." And they spoke to my parents, and you know, it was very embarrassing for me. Sure. And you know, I couldn't play tennis for 6 months.
Yeah.
And since I came back after those 6 months, I think I learned a lesson.
Well, here's what I was going to ask you. Did you ever wish for one moment in time you could behave on court like a Connors, like a McEnroe, leaving no stone unturned, letting your passions flow instead of keeping it inside?
I think that's not part of my mentality. If you look at all the Swedish players today, it's very rarely that you see like a Swedish player behaving or cursing about calls, or you know, swearing or throwing rackets. I think that's part of our mentality in Sweden, that, you know, we do everything for 100%. We go out and practice and try our best. Compared to other mentalities, I think the American people, compared to Swedish people, they're more open. They show their emotion, they're more open-minded, open-spoken than Swedish people. And I think that might have a part to do with, you know, how you act on the tennis court.
Speaking of openness, Jimmy Connors always open. We take a look at a quote. This is back, I believe, in 1978, after he lost to you at Wimbledon again, and he had many losses to Bjorn Borg. He said, "I will follow that SOB to the ends of the earth. Everywhere he turns, he'll see my shadow." The story goes that after he lost to you in 78, he was so distraught that he went back into the locker room at Wimbledon and called his psychiatrist in Los Angeles and said, "I can't beat this guy." It really got to Jimmy. But the ironic aspect of your careers is you couldn't beat him either at the U.S. Open. Talk about Connors and the frustrations for both of you in one way or another.
In the beginning, I remember the first match we ever played was at Stockholm Open, long time ago. Then I beat him for the first time. Then I lost to him like 4 or 5 or even 6 times in a row. I had problems to play Jimmy. I realized, you know, what maybe he realized later, that it's going to be difficult to beat this guy. But like, you know, those quotes he made up, that, you know, I was maybe thinking the same, you know, because I knew I can beat this guy.
We're going to see action now of you and he at Wimbledon.
Okay.
Why, though, were you so dominant of Jimmy Connors at Wimbledon? Was it the surface?
I don't think it was the surface, because we played on all kind of surface, and I felt pretty comfortable playing on all surface. I mean, here we see playing on the grass, and I, you know, that was one of my favorite surface too. And during this time, I had maybe a little bit advantage playing Jimmy, because, I mean, we've been playing several times, and, you know, I have a little bit of an edge playing Jimmy. I felt very comfortable now playing Jimmy, and I think he felt very uncomfortable playing me, because during this time I've been beating him maybe like 6 or 7 times in a row. And so I felt, walking into the court, I felt very confident playing Jimmy. And even in this final we saw here in Wimbledon.
Was that the biggest regret for you in your career, to have not won the United States Open? Is that the one thing that if there ever would have been a comeback, you would have come back for?
Yeah, you could say that. Sitting here, I don't really have any regrets, but I mean, that's the only really big tournament that's missing in my records, and it's the US Open. I've been in the final 4 times, and it's, you know, one of the biggest tournaments in the world. But I know, sitting here, that I did, you know, everything possible to prepare for the tournament. I did everything right, and it's just not, you know, as much luck I had at Wimbledon. I think as much, really a little bit unlucky I was at US Open. But in my mind, I feel pretty good that, you know, I could not say to myself, why didn't I do that? Or why, you know, didn't I play maybe a couple of tournaments before, or prepare myself before? No, I feel pretty good about it, but unfortunately I did not win the US Open. And, you know, it's not too much I can do about it.
Physiologically, he had it all. He had all the gifts. A pulse rate of 35, blood pressure 70/30. They said he had eerie instincts. But what went first in Bjorn Borg's career was not his athletic ability, but his resolve. We'll come back, talk about the burnout factor with Bjorn Borg after this.
Eight is enough to do battle in Arena Football's 50-yard indoor war. Friday night, the New York Knights face the Pittsburgh Gladiators, live on ESPN.
Guests on Sportslook receive the all-new Brutus Space Gym by XL. Build and tone your arms, legs, stomach, and chest in the privacy of your own home. Solidly built, Brutus Space Gym folds away for easy storage. The Space Gym by XL, the exercise company.
With the first man in 75 years to win 5 consecutive Wimbledon titles, Bjorn Borg, who will be 32 in June, just a couple of weeks away. There's a picture that everyone has in their mind of Bjorn Borg with the gold locks and the headband, and it's a different look. Does it bother you that people will always perceive you as the way you were when you were 25, 24 years old?
Not really, no. And it's true what you say, that people are coming up to me and say, what's happened to you? I mean,
you don't look like
you don't look the same. You cut your hair, you shave. But I think it's, that's what the people remember when I retired, when I was 26. And like you said, I think still in their minds, they probably have the same thoughts about me as you know, with the long blonde hair and my headbands. But, I mean, that's in the past now. I mean, I'm doing a lot of other things, and I'm still involved with tennis. But it's no way I can, you know, keep looking at that the same way till I'm like 50 or 60 years old.
Yeah, you moved away from the jet-set life. You moved away from Monte Carlo, back to Sweden. You sold your apartment in New York, for example. Why?
Yeah, I moved back to Sweden 2 years ago. I'm living in Stockholm, outside Stockholm, with my family. And like you said, I had a house outside New York. I sold that 3-4 years ago. And I just felt that, especially I met a Swedish girl, and you know, it was something I was missing in life, and I realized that there was this thing, you know, missing Sweden. When I came back 2 years ago, I felt pretty good coming back once again home, speaking your own language, seeing your old friends, and, you know, just being the same guy as I was when I was leaving my country like 13, 14 years ago. So that was one thing I was missing without, you know, realizing it. So I feel pretty good.
You would say something like that earlier while you were still playing. The quote was, "There was something missing inside of me. It didn't matter any longer when I lost. That's not me." Well, you opted to get out of tennis, and people called it burnout. We'll get your opinion on the concept of burnout in just a few moments, but people are also talking about Boris Becker in the same way. Fame, success came very early. The wealth came early, and the expectations, the pressures that come with it. Boris Becker talked about Bjorn Borg and the parallels, if he thought it was burnout. Here's what he said.
Yeah, he started very early, and he then won 5 consecutive Wimbledons in a row, and after that he lost, and then it's difficult, I guess, to get up and do it again, because you did already everything when you were 24, 25. So it's a kind of difficult situation, you know. Sure, he was burned out at 26, but he was playing for 10, 12 years, you know. Normally a tennis player starts at 19, 20, and then he plays until 13. Everybody says, okay, it's time to stop. But for him, he played already 10 years. What else should he win? What else should he do? He was #1. He won all the tournaments he needed to. And that's, I think, more important.
He says you had your time, and that really it wasn't burnout per se, that it wasn't a premature exit to the game.
I think the thing was that everybody in the world was very surprised that when I retired when I was 26 years old, because that never ever happened before. How could you retire when you're 26 years old? I mean, I could easily have another good 5 years in top tennis if I wanted. And then people came up with this word burnout. But the thing is that maybe I wanted to do other things with my life than playing tennis. Maybe during that time I didn't enjoy playing tennis. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Maybe I wanted to get involved, to experience myself, to extend my as a human being than just playing tennis from morning to evening.
See, the American perspective of life is to never let up, never stand back, never reflect. It's go, go, go. That curve should never be on the downward or even go like, it's always got to be going up, up, up.
But yeah, the thing is, yeah, that's the American way of thinking, that you just keep going all the time till that day comes, till you fall down. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's going to happen anyway. I mean, you cannot go, 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 and the curve is going up. Someday has to go down too. Mm. But the thing is that, you know, like I said, I could play for another 5 years, but, you know, I wanted to do other things with life. And it's very difficult for people to understand what my thought was during that time. Mm. The only thing was, the easiest thing was to say, okay, he's burned out. I mean, he's been playing and playing, he's burned out, and, you know, you see, you know, that's a good example of what Bjorn Borg did, you know. Mm. I mean,
it's true. Bjorn Borg, his curve is at its highest peak right now, personally. We'll come back to talk about other great Swedish tennis stars, Mats Wilander, for example, and what it's like to maintain the legacy left by Borg after this.
Of a national championship heads toward home. The nation's best battle for a World Series berth at the NCAA Regional Final. Sunday night, live on the ESPN.
This week in Paris, Mats Wilander, the great young Swedish tennis star, was quoted as saying that all Swedish players play like Bjorn Borg. That is to say, we do not make mistakes. Bjorn Borg is our guest. Let's talk about Mats Wilander for a second. What do you think it must be like to carry that mantle of greatness left by you?
Well, I think it's first, it's very important not to compare players. I mean, I was, you know, Bjorn Borg. Mats is Mats Wilander, and even if we're playing pretty similar, we play a lot from the backcourt. And but it's, you know, I don't think he's thinking about it too much. But sure, always people is going to compare him to me, and maybe compare me to other players too. So it's mentally sometimes it might be pretty hard for Wilander. It's the same thing if I have a son who's 3 years old. If he should start to play tennis, he will have a lot of pressure because his father was very successful in tennis.
Mm-hmm. There are about half dozen great Swedish stars in the top 20 in the world. Do you think a lot of it has to do with you and your legacy?
I think I was part of the success in the tennis in Sweden. More players, more people started to play tennis. The interest got much higher than it used to be before I was successful in tennis. Mm-hmm. And we have a good program, federation, a lot of people helping, involved with tennis. Plus, I'm playing quite a lot too with the Swedish juniors in Sweden. Mm-hmm. So the whole situation, the whole program is very good. Mm.
Tom Callahan of Time magazine wrote a pretty brutal, I thought, piece involving Ivan Lendl and his observations about Lendl several years ago. This was the quote: "Though Bjorn Borg is a dull enough fellow in his company, dull is appealing, Lendl," he said, "is a chilly, self-centered, condescending, mean-spirited, arrogant man with a nice forehand." Now, maybe he was being a little humorous about that. Let's hope so, anyway. But why do you think, for all of his greatness, and he really wants to be loved, Lendl, he has made great pains, for all of his greatness, he has never been loved like Bjorn Borg, who never really wanted to be loved particularly?
Well, sure, everybody wants to be loved.
But you didn't work for it like he does.
I didn't work for it, but sometimes you have to get more, like Lendl, for instance, in the beginning. I think maybe he was not experienced enough. I mean, he did few things he should not do, and, you know, maybe a few quotes or those kind of things. But I think he's, you know, he's learning how to act, and how to act on the court, and how to act, you know, outside the court, and even how to act with people around him is very important. That's why you see this quote sometimes on how people is talking about Lendl in a way maybe they should not do, because he's a great athlete. I think he has a great personality. But it's just a matter of what's happened maybe a few years back, that maybe he was not as nice, if I should put it that way.
Diplomatic, perhaps?
Diplomatic, the way he should be. But I think he's learning, and I mean, if you look at him now as a person compared maybe to 3-4 years ago, I think it's a big change.
We have just seconds left. We're really out of time. But if you could capsulize it all and write the first paragraph in Bjorn Borg's, you know, final pages of history, what would it be?
The way it were, it's the way it was.
Just let the play speak for itself.
Yeah.
Bjorn Borg, he did, and boy, he was something else. 6-time French Open champion, 5 consecutive Wimbledon champion, and involving himself with a wonderful program for scholarships for 2 inner-city youths here in Los Angeles that are helped, sponsored by the Hermitage Foundation, Scandinavian Airlines. Bjorn Borg, great seeing you again.
Very nice.
I like it without the long hair, by the way.
Thank you. Nice being on the show.
Okay. We'll come back. Robert Rieger takes a look back at the great career of Bjorn Borg after this.
Two-time world driving champion Alain Prost leads the way on one of the circuit's most treacherous tracks. An international field accepts the challenge of the Grand Prix of Mexico. Sunday afternoon, live on ESPN.
The man owned an island. Kitchilo was the name of the island. He's since sold it, but Bjorn Borg owned a lot more in his reign. He owned tennis, specifically Wimbledon. Here's Robert Rieger on his observations.
Well, Roy, it's an admission. For all of Bjorn's greatness, I couldn't take a good picture of him. It was very difficult. I don't know what it was, but, you know, his swaying at the baseline deep and blowing on his hands, as you saw in the clips. And but 12 years ago, he was unorthodox and revolutionary. And the key to his play was his exaggerated topspin. The ball supposedly would go over the net 6 feet and then drop 6 feet short of the baseline. His hands, his grip, his racket was specially constructed, the Bancroft wooden racket. It had a longer handle for his two-handed grip, his two-handed backhand. He felt more comfortable with a longer racket. The racket was preposterously strung with 80 pounds of tension. I mean, 65 is normal. But that makes the sweet spot on the racket so small that you have to hit the ball just right. And of course, he was accused of mishitting so many shots, lucky shots. He didn't think that he mishit that many, but of course, he used that to advantage. He was an instinctive player. Many thought that he didn't plan his shots. He was very stoic. He had a pulse rate of 35, and he was unflappable on the court, and he just wore people down. I think a lot of it, came from his love of hockey as a boy. He switched from ice hockey to tennis when he was 13. His father had won a paddle tennis contest and given him his first racket at 9. At 18, he decided to string the racket tight. But I never could make him look as exciting as he was. His baseline play was repetitive. This shot I remember taking the sequence in the U.S. Open. He must have stood there and returned 12 balls exactly in the same spot. That people claim that if he had a weakness, it was his two-handed backhand on volleyings, but I didn't see it. But it was wonderful to do him in a tournament that he never won, because his demeanor was even greater as a competitor.
I love the fact that you once said, "I never stop and think, I just play." It was nice stopping and thinking about it.
It's where it is,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We'll come back and tell you about tomorrow's program after this.